Hello friends, welcome to the HFY Ode, where we bring you the new science fiction stories for you, and new adventure, new world.
They said humans were soft, that our short lives made us reckless, that we clung to outdated concepts like loyalty and sacrifice while the galaxy had evolved past such primitive notions. The Corinthian Empire had ruled for 6,000 years on cold calculation and perfect strategy. They didn't understand that sometimes the most dangerous thing in the universe isn't the sharpest mind. It's the one willing to bleed for something greater than itself. The War Council chamber hung, suspended in the void between stars, a construct of crystalline mathematics and hard light that diffracted distant suns into a crown of colored fire. Ambassador Chun Wei stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching the Corinthian High Arbiters materialize one by one into their designated positions. They didn't walk. They simply became quantum states resolving into flesh as casually as breathing. She'd been doing this for 3 years now. Still made her stomach flip. The human representative, Arbiter Thelcrows, acknowledged her existence the way you'd note a stain on expensive fabric. Regrettable, but ultimately insignificant. His form was tall, too tall, proportions all wrong in that way that made the hindbrain scream. Smooth gray skin, eyes like polished obsidian set too far apart. We've reviewed your proposal. Chin said nothing. Waited. Her briefing packet had been explicit on that point. Let them come to you. Corinthians interpreted eagerness as weakness, silence as confidence. It's quaint, Arbiter Velshera added. Her voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Your species' insistence on bilateral defense agreements. Tell me, Ambassador, do you extend such offers to the insects that construct hives on your world? The microorganisms in your water? The translator chip behind Chin's ear rendered the condescension perfectly. Real nice. We extend them to sovereign species capable of mutual benefit, Chin replied, keeping her voice level. Professional. Like she was discussing quarterly earnings instead of the survival of 47 colony worlds. The Corinthian Empire faces an existential threat from the Valkyrie swarms. We're offering military support. Thelcrows made a sound that wasn't quite laughter. Military support. You've existed in space for less than 2 centuries. We've fought wars that span millennia before your ancestors discovered fire. He leaned forward, and Chun caught the scent of ozone and something organic and wrong. What could you possibly offer us? Our ships are crude, primitive fusion drives, and kinetic weapons. We've seen your specifications. Our soldiers live barely a century, die from simple cellular degradation. You haven't even achieved biological immortality. Velshera's form shifted, light bending around her in patterns that hurt to perceive directly. The Valkyrie are a Category 7 threat. They've consumed 38 star systems in the past decade alone. They don't negotiate. They don't retreat. They convert all biological matter into more of themselves. Chun felt her jaw tighten. She'd seen the footage. Entire worlds reduced to writhing masses of meat and chitin breathing as one organism, thinking as one mind. The stuff of nightmares rendered in high definition. And yet you're losing, she said quietly. The temperature in the chamber dropped 5 degrees. We are managing the situation, Thelcrows said, each word crystallizing in the air between them. Our projections indicate containment within 4 standard solar cycles. Your projections are wrong. Chun pulled up the holographic display, data streams cascading in the air. Red vectors spreading through the galactic map like blood and water. 3 months ago, they were consuming one system every 30 days. Last month, it was one every 17 days. This week, she highlighted the newest reports. 2 systems in 5 days. They're accelerating. Silence. We have protocols, Velshera finally said. Strategic retreats. Managed losses. We've survived 6 extinction-level events across our history through careful calculation. You're running out of space to retreat to. Another pause. Longer this time. Chun could feel them conferring on some quantum level she couldn't perceive, having entire conversations in the spaces between her heartbeats. Even if we were to accept your offer, Felcrows said slowly, you've provided no evidence your species possesses any tactical advantage. Your technology is inferior. Your lifespan's tragically short. Your population density's laughable compared to our own. You cling to emotional concepts, loyalty, honor, sacrifice, that our psychologists classified as evolutionary dead ends 4,000 years ago. His eyes fixed on hers. Why would we contaminate a sound strategic framework with human sentiment? Chun reached into her jacket. Every arbiter in the room stiffened, energy fields crackling to life. She pulled out a photograph. Old-fashioned, actual paper, and chemical dyes. This is my daughter, she said, holding it up. May. She's 7. Loves dinosaurs, and can't sleep without her stuffed rabbit. She sat on the table between them. She's currently in a bunker on New Shanghai Colony, along with 3 million other civilians, because the Valkyrie Vanguard is 2 weeks out from their system. Felcrows stared at the photograph like it was a bomb. Your emotional attachment to offspring is biologically hardwired, but strategically irrelevant. I'm not making an emotional argument. Chen's voice cut through the air. I'm making a practical one. You've optimized yourselves into a corner. 6,000 years of perfect strategy, and you're still losing because you forgot something fundamental. She leaned forward. You forgot how to fight for something more important than calculations. There is nothing more important than optimal outcomes. Bullshit. The word hung there. Raw, profane, utterly human. You want to know what we offer? Chun continued. Fine. Our ships are slower. Our weapons less sophisticated. Our soldiers die from old age. She met Felcrow's gaze and didn't blink. But we spent our entire history fighting things that should have killed us. Ice ages, diseases, each other. We've faced extinction a dozen times, and every single time we looked at the math that said we couldn't win and said watch us. She pulled up another display. Human military doctrine, battle records, statistical analyses. We lose 40% of our forces in every major engagement. Your tacticians would call that unacceptable. We call it Tuesday. The data scrolled past. We throw ourselves at impossible odds. We hold positions that can't be held. We die for strangers we've never met because something in our fucked up primate brains says that matters. That's madness, Velshera whispered. Yeah. Chun smiled, and it wasn't friendly. It really is. But here's the thing about madness. It's unpredictable. Your perfect strategies? They're beautiful, mathematically flawless. The Valkyrie can adapt to them because they're logical. She closed the display. Try adapting to a species that charges machine gun nests to save a wounded comrade, that holds bridges until ammunition runs out and then keeps fighting with entrenching tools and broken bottles, that looks at certain death and decides honor matters more than survival. The arbiters were silent. Our preliminary models suggested humans would be extinct within 500 years of achieving spaceflight. Felcrows said finally. Too violent. Too emotional, too short-sighted. And yet here we are. Chin picked up her daughter's photograph, tucked it back into her jacket. Still kicking, still fighting, still too stupid to quit. She straightened. So here's the deal. You can keep running your beautiful calculations while the Valkyrie eat the galaxy. Or you can accept that sometimes the universe doesn't care about optimal solutions. Sometimes it comes down to who's willing to bleed more. She turned toward the exit. You have 48 hours to decide. After that, we're deploying our fleet to New Shanghai with or without your support. You'll die, Velshera called after her. The Valkyrie will consume you. Everything you are will be converted into them. Your daughter, your entire species. Erased. Chun stopped at the threshold. Look back. Maybe, she said, but we'll make them choke on us. She left. The chamber remained silent for exactly 743 quantum cycles. Then, Arbiter Felcrows turned to his colleagues. Begin integration protocols, he said quietly. The humans fight with us. This violates every strategic principle we've established, Velshera protested. Their tactics are chaos. Their technology insufficient. Their very presence will introduce variables we cannot control. I know. Felcrows stared at the space where the human had stood, where she placed that photograph of her offspring and challenged 6,000 years of Corinthian supremacy with nothing but conviction and rage. That's why we need them. The Guangzhou was not an impressive ship by Corinthian standards. 1,600 meters of welded titanium alloy and ceramic plating, powered by fusion reactors that the Corinthians had surpassed 4 millennia ago. Its weapons systems were kinetic, actual physical projectiles accelerated to relativistic speeds. Primitive. Crude. Captain Sarah Okonkwo loved it anyway. She stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display as her fleet dropped out of FTL at the edge of the new Shanghai system. 57 ships. Every combat-capable vessel humanity could scrape together from 3 sectors. Destroyers. Frigates. 1 battered carrier that had been decommissioned twice and kept getting pulled back into service because nobody could afford to let it rust. Against them, the Valkyrie Vanguard. Jesus Christ, her XO breathed. The sensor readings were wrong. Had to be. Nothing could be that big. Except they weren't wrong. The Valkyrie had converted an entire moon into themselves. A sphere of flesh and chitin 3,000 kilometers in diameter, covered in weapons that grew like tumors from surface. Acid cannons. Spore launchers. Things that looked biological, but functioned like particle beams, burning through the void with light that made the camera scream. And it was breathing. The entire mass expanded and contracted, processing stellar radiation and asteroid minerals into more of itself. Fleet calm, Sarah said. Her voice didn't shake. Points for that. All ships, execute formation Delta 7. Target priority on the spawned ships. Around the moon thing, smaller vessels detached. Still massive. Kilometer-long seed pods that would slam into New Shanghai and crack open and birth millions of soldier forms. The invasion swarm. Her comm officer looked pale. Captain, the Corinthian fleet, I see them. 300 Corinthian warships materialized from quantum space, each one a work of art. Sleek, efficient, crackling with energy weapons that could glass a continent. They immediately began long-range bombardment. Lance beams carving into the Valkyrie moon with surgical precision. It barely noticed. They're adapting, her tactical officer reported. The Valkyrie surface is hardening where the beams hit, redistributing thermal load. Corinthian fire is losing effectiveness by, he paused, checked his readings. 40% reduction in 30 seconds. 60% at 1 minute. By the time, I know, Sarah had read the reports. Watched the battle recordings from previous engagements. The Valkyrie were biological, but they learned like machines. Pattern recognition at the cellular level. Hit them with the same thing twice, and the second time barely scratched them, which was why humanity's obsolete kinetic weapons were about to become very relevant. All ships, she said, load tungsten penetrators. Full salvos. Fire on my mark. Her XO leaned close. Sarah, those spawned ships have adaptive armor. Our rounds won't do shit to them. I know. She watched the tactical display. Watched the spawned ships accelerate toward New Shanghai, toward the 3 million civilians huddled in bunkers, toward her niece who was down there somewhere, because the universe had a sense of humor. But that's not what we're shooting at. She waited. Let the spawned ships get closer. Let them commit to their trajectory. The Valkyrie moon pulsed. Energy built along its surface, bioelectric discharges that made Sarah's teeth ache even through the ship's shielding. Mark, 57 human ships fired simultaneously. 16,000 tungsten rods, each one a telephone pole made of depleted uranium and, hate, accelerated to 20% light speed. They streaked past the spawned ships and slammed into the moon. The Valkyrie had adapted to energy weapons. Learned to disperse heat, harden against particle beams. Nobody had shot them with kinetic weapons in 3,000 years. The rods punched through the hardened surface like it was tissue paper, burrowed deep, and then the physics took over. All that kinetic energy had to go somewhere. The moon shuddered. Then it screamed. Sarah felt it through the hull, through her bones, through her teeth. A sound that shouldn't exist in vacuum, but did anyway because the Valkyrie were alive and they were hurting. Again, she ordered. Full salvos. Everything we've got. The human fleet fired. Again. Again. Tungsten rain hammering into flesh that had conquered 38 star systems. The spawned ships wavered. Faltered. The moon was recalling them, pulling resources back to heal itself. Corinthian fleet is adjusting. Her comm officer reported. They're targeting the spawned ships while they're disoriented. Sarah watched the elegant alien warships dance through space. Energy weapons carving spawned ships apart with mathematical precision now that they weren't adapted to defend against both attack vectors simultaneously. Her tactical officer was laughing. Actually laughing. They're panicking. The Valkyrie are... Oh my god, they're retreating. The moon lurched. Started pulling back from a planet. All ships pursue, Sarah commanded. Don't let them regroup. Hit them until they break or we're out of ammunition. Captain, her XO said quietly. We've got maybe 6 more full salvos. Then we're down a point defense and hope. Then we'd better make them count. The human fleet charged forward, every obsolete fusion drive burning at maximum, chasing a wound they'd opened in something that had thought itself invincible. Behind them, the Corinthian fleet hesitated for exactly 4 quantum cycles. Then followed. Admiral Felcrows watched the human ships swarm over the Valkyrie moon like insects attacking something 1,000 times their size. It was glorious. It was terrifying. It was working. Analysis, he commanded. His tactical AI responded immediately. The Valkyrie Collective is experiencing unprecedented disruption. Human kinetic weapons are exploiting a gap in adaptive defenses. They haven't encountered solid projectile technology since the Bronze Age conflicts. Regeneration systems are overwhelmed. The collective is prioritizing survival over expansion for the first time in recorded history. Casualties: human fleet has lost 11 ships. Projected total loss: 34 vessels if current engagement continues. 60% casualties. The humans would lose more than half their fleet. And they weren't slowing down. Felcrows watched the Guangzhou take a direct hit from a bioplasma cannon. The ship's entire port side became molten slag. It kept firing, kept accelerating. The crew was probably dying in there, cooked alive in their own armor, and they were still fighting. This is madness, Velshera whispered beside him. They're throwing themselves away. No. Felcrows couldn't look away from the display. They're buying time. He pulled up the planetary defense grid. New Shanghai's orbital fortresses are coming online. They needed 14 minutes to fully charge their main batteries. The humans are giving them those minutes. Another human ship died. The destroyer Nairobi, broken in half by a spawned ship's ramming attack. As it died, it detonated its entire fusion core at point-blank range, taking the spawned ship with it. Felcrows had seen wars. Hundreds of them across 6,000 years. He'd never seen this. Update tactical doctrine, he ordered. All ships will advance in coordination with human forces. Energy weapons to focus on hardened targets. Let the humans handle kinetic penetration. That's not optimal, his AI protested. Our ships are faster, more maneuverable. Our ships are predictable, Felcrows interrupted. The Valkyrie adapt to predictable. The humans. He watched another impossible maneuver. Watched the carrier Shanghai somehow drift sideways while firing broadside like a wet Navy warship from ancient Earth history. The humans are chaos. We ride the chaos. The Corinthian fleet surged forward. And for the first time in 6,000 years, they followed someone else's lead. Chun Wei watched from the bunker on New Shanghai. Her daughter pressed against her side as the space battle painted light across the sky. The defense grid was charging. 7 more minutes. May looked up at her. Are the ships winning, Mama? Chin thought about Captain Okonkwo, who she'd met exactly once at a diplomatic function. Thought about the 57 crews up there, most of them kids who'd enlisted because someone had to, and it might as well be them. Thought about the 11 ships that had already died. Yeah, baby, she said, pulling May closer. They're winning. Her daughter's stuffed rabbit was tucked under one arm. Probably the most important thing in May's universe right now. Chun had her photograph in her jacket pocket. Her own most important thing. Up above, people were dying for them. For a 7-year-old girl and her rabbit. For 3 million strangers. For the concept that maybe some things were worth bleeding for. The tactical display on the bunker wall showed another ship winking out. The frigate Lagos. Chun closed her eyes. Open them. Tell me about dinosaurs, she said to May. Which one's your favorite? As her daughter launched into an explanation of why velociraptors were clearly superior to T-Rexes, factually incorrect, but enthusiastically argued, Chun watched the sky burn and counted down the minutes until the defense grid came online, and those deaths meant something. For minutes. 3, 2. The Valkyrie moon was retreating faster now, trailing chunks of itself where the kinetic bombardment had shattered it. The human fleet had lost 19 ships. The Corinthian fleet had lost 0, but only because they'd learned to let the humans break the targets first. 1 minute. The defense grid hummed to life. 30 orbital fortresses, each mounting weapons that made the Guangzhou's main guns look like pop guns. They'd been charging this whole time, drinking power from the planet's fusion network, building up energy for one devastating salvo. They fired 30 lances of coherent light that made the sun look dim. They converged on the Valkyrie moon, hitting it from 30 different angles simultaneously, and this time, when it screamed, the sound carried all the way down to the planet's surface. Chun felt May flinch against her. It's okay, she whispered. It's almost over. The moon began to break apart, chunks the size of cities calving off, drifting away, consumed by their own biology as the collective cannibalized itself, trying to survive. Human fleet is pursuing. The bunker's comm system announced. Corinthian reinforcements arriving. The vanguard is in full retreat. Around the bunker, 3 million people started cheering. Chun just held her daughter and watched the survivors limp back toward orbit. 38 ships out of 57. 75,000 crew. 46,000 casualties. But New Shanghai was still there. Still alive. Still breathing. Admiral Felcrows materialized in the medical bay of the Guangzhou without announcement. Admiral Felcrows materialized in the medical bay of the Guangzhou without announcement. The human medical staff didn't even flinch. They were too busy trying to save the dying. The smell hit him first. Burned flesh. Ozone. Something organic breaking down at the molecular level. Humans leaked when they broke. Blood and other fluids. It was inefficient. Messy. He found Captain Okonkwo in surgery. Not receiving it. Performing it. She stood over one of her crew, hands inside the man's chest cavity, physically holding his heart together while a medical AI tried to seal the damage. Her uniform was soaked red. Her face was gray with exhaustion. She looked up when Felcrows approached. Didn't stop working. Admiral, she said. Her voice was steady. How was her voice steady? Come to congratulate us on our glorious victory. The sarcasm translator rendered perfectly. I came to understand, Felcrows replied. He watched her hands move, watched her literally holding a man's life together through physical contact. The Corinthians had automated medicine 6,000 years ago. 46,000 casualties. 67% loss rate. By any rational metric, this was a disaster. And yet we won. Sarah's hands never stopped moving. Petty Officer Chun, hand me the coagulant pack. A young woman, barely 20 standard years, moved to assist. Her left arm was in a regeneration sleeve. She'd been injured in the battle and was back on duty anyway. Felcrows observed this. Cataloged it. Failed to understand it. Your species fights like you have infinite reserves, he said. You don't. Your population is 17 billion across all settled worlds. The Corinthian Empire numbers 600 billion. The mathematics of attrition, fuck the mathematics. Sarah finally looked at him directly. You see numbers. I see Ensign Rodriguez here, who I personally recruited from Luna Station. I see Chief Okoro, who makes terrible coffee, but tells great jokes. I see Lieutenant Zhao, who's got 2 kids waiting for her back home, and plays violin at the crew talent shows. Her jaw tightened. I see 19 ships full of people who woke up this morning and decided that 3 million strangers mattered more than going home alive. That's not logical. No, it's not. The medical AI chimed completion. Sarah slowly withdrew her hands from her crewman's chest. Watch the skin knit shut under the regeneration field. It's something better than logical. It's human. She stepped back, let her medical team take over, walked to the sink, and began washing blood off her hands. Felcrows watched the pink water spiral down the drain. We need to talk strategy, he said finally. The Valkyrie will adapt. They've experienced kinetic weapons now. Next time we'll do something else. Sarah dried her hands, turned to face him fully. That's the advantage you keep missing. You optimize. You perfect. You create these beautiful strategies that work flawlessly. She smiled, and it was exhausted and fierce. We improvise. We adapt. We look at what worked yesterday and throw it out because the enemy expects it today. Chaos isn't strategy. No, but it's what beats strategy when strategy becomes predictable. She started walking toward the bridge. Felcrows followed. Your people have been fighting the Valkyrie the same way. For how long? Calculated retreats. Managed losses. Perfect tactical formations. And they've been adapting to it. Learning from it. They know exactly how you think. They reached a viewport. Outside, human and Corinthian ships moved in coordinated patterns, establishing a defensive perimeter around New Shanghai. They don't know how we think, Sarah continued, because half the time we don't know how we think. We're unpredictable because we're emotional and stupid, and we make decisions based on things that don't show up in tactical computers. She pointed at her remaining ships. You see casualties. I see heroes. You see inefficiency. I see sacrifice. You calculate acceptable losses. We say no loss is acceptable and then pay the price anyway because someone has to. Felcrows was quiet for a long moment. I've commanded fleets for 800 years, he said finally. I've won battles that are studied in military academies across 40 species. I've never lost a strategic engagement. He looked at her. Until 3 months ago when the Valkyrie took the Karath system. Then the Bendai colonies. Then Threshold Station. I've been losing for 3 months and I couldn't understand why. And now I think I've been winning the wrong way for 800 years. He pulled up a tactical display. The Valkyrie won't stop at New Shanghai. This was a vanguard. The main swarm is 7 days behind. Sarah's face went pale. How many? Enough to consume this entire sector. They've committed to a full assault. 16 hive moons. 4,000 spawn ships. Uncountable soldier forms. He met her eyes. Your fleet stopped 1 moon with 60% casualties. The mathematics, I know what the math says. Sarah's hands gripped the viewport edge. How many ships can you commit? The Empire can deploy 6,000 warships within 5 standard days. That won't be enough. No, it won't. Felcrows manipulated the display, which is why I'm recommending to the High Council that we adopt combined arms doctrine. Corinthian energy weapons to provide cover fire and disable adaptive defenses. Human kinetic weapons to deliver killing blows. Coordinated assault patterns that blend calculation with. He hesitated over the word chaos. Sarah laughed. It was sharp, borderline hysterical. You want to teach 6,000 years of military tradition how to be unpredictable. I want to survive. Your species has a saying, desperate times call for desperate measures. Sarah turned from the viewport. You're really willing to let humans into your strategic command structure? To trust us with joint operations? Trust is irrelevant. Results are what matter. Felcrows pulled up casualty reports. Human losses. Corinthian efficiency. The combined tactical effectiveness. Alone, both our species will die. Together, we have a 43% chance of survival. 43%. It's better than 0. Sarah was quiet. Then she extended her hand. The human gesture of agreement. Felcrows looked at it. At the scarred fingers that had been inside a man's chest 20 minutes ago. At the dried blood still under her fingernails despite the washing. He reached out and clasped it. Her grip was warm. Alive. Organic in a way Corinthian flesh wasn't anymore. We're going to need more ammunition, Sarah said. A lot more. The emergency session of a Human Systems Council convened on Luna Station exactly 12 hours after the Battle of New Shanghai. 200 representatives from every colony world packed into a chamber that smelled like recycled air and fear. Ambassador Chun stood at the podium. She hadn't slept, hadn't changed clothes, still had her daughter's photograph in her jacket pocket. "We've won a single battle," she said without preamble. "The Valkyrie main swarm arrives in 7 days. The Corinthians are committing their entire military to a joint defense. They need our answer now." Representative Torres from Mars Colony stood. "They want to integrate our fleet into their command structure after 6,000 years of treating us like primitives. They want to survive," Chen replied. "Same as us." "The casualty rates," someone else started. "I know." Chen's voice cut through the chamber. 67% at New Shanghai. The projections for the main engagement are worse. She pulled up the tactical analysis. Let them see the numbers. The red vectors. The overwhelming force bearing down on them. Silence. "How much worse?" Torres asked quietly. 90% casualties across combined forces. Maybe higher. Chen looked across the assembly. The Corinthians have 6,000 ships. We can muster maybe 300 if we strip every defensive position in human space. Against 16 hive moons, and for 1,000 spawn ships. That's suicide. Yes. Chen gripped the podium. It's also the only option that doesn't end with the Valkyrie eating the galaxy. We hold here, or we die running. Those are the choices. Representative Kim from New Shanghai stood. Her hands were shaking. 3 million people are alive on my world because 57 ships decided that 67% casualties were acceptable losses. My daughter is alive. My grandson. Her voice cracked. I vote we deploy everything we have. We'll be defenseless, someone protested. If the Valkyrie break through, then it won't matter if we kept ships in reserve. Chen looked across the assembly. I have a 7-year-old daughter. I've spent 3 years negotiating with species that think we're evolutionary dead ends because we feel things. Because we value individual lives over optimal outcomes. She pulled out May's photograph. Held it up. This is what we're fighting for. Not territory. Not resources. The idea that a little girl should get to grow up. That she should get to love dinosaurs and stuffed rabbits and have a future. She set the photograph on the podium. The Corinthians don't understand why we fight the way we do. They can't comprehend throwing away lives for strangers. For concepts like honor and sacrifice. She met their eyes, every representative, every delegate. But we're not Corinthian. We're human. And we've never been good at accepting extinction quietly. Torres stood again. If we commit our entire fleet and lose, at least we'll die fighting. Chen's voice was steel. At least we'll go down, making the universe remember we were here. That we mattered. That we looked at impossible odds and said, fuck you. We're trying anyway. The vote wasn't even close. 317 ships. Every combat-capable vessel humanity possessed. Every crew that could be trained in the next 6 days. They would deploy to the New Shanghai system. They would fight beside the Corinthians. And most of them would die doing it. Commander James Wright had been a civilian engineer 6 months ago. Designed fusion reactors for colony ships. Good job. Safe job. Boring job. Then the Valkyrie had eaten the Kepler colonies, and someone had to build warships, and James had looked at his 2 degrees in engineering and his 0 combat experience, and volunteered anyway, because what else was there to do? Now he stood on the bridge of the Kilimanjaro, a destroyer that had been a cargo hauler 3 months ago, watching his crew run through weapons drills with equipment they barely understood. Targeting system is showing a 3-degree drift, his weapons officer reported. Lieutenant Park. 23 years old, graduated from the academy 2 weeks ago, and got assigned to a ship that had a 70% chance of being destroyed in the next week. She was trying very hard not to look terrified. Log it, James said. We'll compensate manually if we have to. Manually? Park's voice went up an octave. Sir, at combat velocities, even a half-degree error will miss the target. I know. James pulled up the tactical display, ran the simulations again, watched his ship die in 17 different scenarios. But our targeting AI is designed for cargo containers, not hostile contacts. We work with what we have. His XO, Commander Sarah Chun, no relation to the ambassador, but they joked about it anyway, leaned close. James, half his crew has never seen combat. Our engineer is a botanist who took a crash course in fusion maintenance. Our navigator gets motion sick. I know. We're gonna die out there. Probably. James looked at her. You want to tell me that's a reason not to go? Sarah was quiet. Then she laughed short and sharp. No, I guess it's not. She straightened. But I like to make their regeneration systems work overtime before we do. That's the spirit. The comm chimed. Fleet-wide broadcast from Admiral Okonkwo. All ships, this is Guangzhou. Joint tactical briefing in 1 hour. Human and Corinthian command will be attending. Make sure your crews understand what we're up against. A pause. And make sure they know why we're fighting anyway. James switched to ship-wide. All hands, this is the commander. Tactical briefing at 1,400 hours. Attendance mandatory. That includes you, Chun. Yes, both of you. Engineering, I know you're busy. Come anyway. Medical, kitchen staff, everyone. He took a breath. We've got 6 days before the biggest battle in human history. Let's make sure we're ready to make it count. He cut the channel. Looked at Sarah. You think they'll be ready? She asked. No, James said honestly. But I think they'll fight anyway. That's going to have to be enough. The joint tactical briefing took place in virtual space, a shared simulation environment where human and Corinthian officers could coordinate without worrying about atmospheric compatibility or quantum communication lag. James materialized into what looked like a war room from a historical drama. Maps on walls. Conference table. The Corinthians had generated it based on human cultural references, trying to make the environment comfortable. It was deeply unsettling seeing Arbiter Velshera standing next to a holographic representation of ancient Earth military regalia. Commanders, Admiral Okonkwo's avatar appeared at the head of the table. Thank you for joining us. This is going to be fast and brutal, so pay attention. The display shifted. The new Shanghai system rendered in 3 dimensions. Defense positions marked in blue. Known Valkyrie approach vectors in red. So much red. They're not being subtle, Felcrow said. His avatar was scaled to human proportions, which somehow made him more unsettling. The Valkyrie are committing everything to this assault. 16 hive moons. For 1,000 spawn ships. Current estimates put their soldier form numbers at somewhere around 400 million individual units. Someone swore quietly. Our combined fleet numbers 6,300 ships, Felcrows continued. Corinthian vessels will maintain long-range energy weapon superiority. Human ships will deliver close-range kinetic strikes. But the numbers are not in our favor. Understatement of the century, someone muttered. Okonkwo pulled up the battle plan. We're going to fight them in layers. First engagement line is the outer system. Corinthian heavy cruisers supported by human destroyers. Goal is to thin their numbers and force them to adapt to our combined tactics before they reach the planet. James studied the formation. That's a kill zone. First line won't survive contact. No, Okonkwo agreed. They won't. Second line engages when first line is overrun. Third line when second falls. We trade space for time and make them pay for every kilometer. How many lines? 7. James felt his stomach drop. 7 lines. 7 waves of ships that would die to slow the advance. New Shanghai's orbital defenses will be our final position, Felcrows added. If the Valkyrie reach the planet, we've lost. The goal is to break them before then. Velshera manipulated the display. Each hive moon is a strategic problem. They can regenerate faster than we can damage them. Previous engagements have shown, kill the spawn ships first, James interrupted. Everyone looked at him. Saw the... But, at New Shanghai, we targeted the moon. It pulled the spawn ships back to defend itself. What if we reverse that? Hit the spawn ships. Make the moon commit resources to regenerating them instead of advancing. Felcrose tilted his head. That's tactically sound, but requires enormous ammunition expenditure. We got 6 days, Okonkwo said slowly. Every industrial facility in human space is currently manufacturing tungsten penetrators. How much can we produce? A Corinthian logistics officer pulled up projections. If you dedicate your entire manufacturing base, approximately 400,000 projectiles per day, times 6 days, 2.4 million rounds. Do it, Okonkwo ordered. Every factory, every fabricator. Strip asteroid mines if you have to. I want projectiles. James raised his hand like he was in school. There's another problem. The spawn ships adapt. By the time we're on engagement line 3 or 4, they'll have hardened against kinetics. So we change ammunition types, Lieutenant Park said. She'd been quiet until now, her avatar flickering nervously. Start with tungsten. Switch to depleted uranium when they adapt. Then titanium. Then iron. Keep changing the material density and composition. Make them adapt to 6 different projectile types while taking fire from Corinthian energy weapons. Silence. Then, Felcro started laughing. The sound was wrong, coming from his throat. You want to force evolutionary adaptation through industrial variation. He paused. That's brilliant. And completely insane. Welcome to human military doctrine, Okonkwo said dryly. Commander Park, you're now head of ammunition logistics. Coordinate with Corinthian Industrial Command. I want projectile diversity across the entire ammunition supply. Park's avatar went pale. Sir, I'm a weapons officer. You just proposed a strategy that might keep us alive. Congratulations on your field promotion. Don't fuck it up. The briefing continued for 3 more hours. Formation. Fallback positions. Casualty estimates that made James want to throw up. When it finally ended, he found himself standing next to Velshira's avatar. Your species is very strange, she said quietly. We get that a lot. The Corinthians spent 4,000 years eliminating behavioral inefficiencies, emotional responses, irrational decision-making. She looked at him. You've spent that same time amplifying those traits. It shouldn't work. And yet here we are. James smiled tiredly. Still alive. Still fighting. For now, Velshira's avatar began to dissolve. I hope your chaos is enough, Commander. Because if it's not, all of us will die together. She disappeared. James stood alone in the virtual war room, looking at the tactical display with its 7 defensive lines and its casualty projections and its 43% survival probability. No pressure, he muttered. Day 3 of preparation. The manufacturing facilities on Luna were running at 400% capacity. Every asteroid mining operation in human space had been converted to ammunition production. Tungsten, uranium, titanium, iron. 6 different projectile types, each one designed to force the Valkyrie to adapt to new material densities. Chun Wei toured the facilities with her daughter. Probably not standard protocol, but she made the decision that if the world was ending, May deserved to see what humanity looked like when it decided to fight. Why are they making bullets, Mama? May asked, watching the fabricators pour molten metal into molds. They're not bullets, baby. They're bigger than that. What are they for? Chun knelt down. Look her daughter in the eye. Remember how I told you there are bad things in space? Things that want to hurt people. May nodded solemnly, clutching her rabbit. These are how we stop them. We throw these really, really hard, and it makes the bad things go away. Will it work? Chun thought about casualty projections, about 7 defensive lines, about the fact that every person she'd met in the past 6 days might be dead in 4 more. I hope so, she said honestly. A lot of brave people are going to try their very best to make it work. A factory supervisor approached. Ambassador, you asked to see the final production numbers? Chun stood. Go ahead. Current stockpile is 800,000 projectiles across all 6 material types. By launch time, we'll have just over 2 million rounds. He pulled up a datapad. It's the most concentrated industrial output in human history. Every facility is running nonstop. We've got maintenance crews working double shifts just to keep the equipment from melting. And the Corinthian contribution, they're providing the energy weapons and defensive screening, plus some kind of gravity manipulation technology that's supposed to help our projectiles maintain velocity at extreme range. He shook his head. Never thought I'd see the day we'd be fighting beside them. Neither did they, Chun replied. But here we are. May tugged on her jacket. Mama, can we go see the ships? Chun looked at the supervisor. He shrugged. Observation deck has a good view of the fleet assembly. Might be worth seeing. They took the transit pod up to the observation level. Through the transparent aluminum, Chun could see ships. Hundreds of them. Human vessels, boxy and utilitarian and bristling with railguns. Corinthian warships, sleek and elegant and crackling with barely contained energy. Together. Pretty, May said, pressing her nose against the window. Chun watched a Corinthian dreadnought move into formation beside the human carrier Shanghai. Watched smaller vessels dart between them, coordinating patterns and testing formations. Her comm chimed. Private channel. Admiral Okonkwo. Ambassador. The admiral's voice was tight. We've got a situation. Chin's stomach dropped. What kind of situation? The kind where 3 Corinthian heavy cruisers just broke formation and are refusing to integrate with human command structure. They're saying the risk is too high, that our tactics will get them killed. Are they wrong? No. But if they break off, it destabilizes the entire defensive line. Okonkwo paused. I need to talk to Thelkros. He's not responding to my hails. Chun looked at her daughter. At the rabbit. At the ships floating in perfect formation outside the window. Give me 10 minutes, she said. She found Thelkros in his quarters aboard the Corinthian flagship Eternal Theorem. He was standing in what looked like a meditation chamber, energy patterns flowing around him in complex mathematical spirals. 3 of your ships are breaking formation, Chun said without preamble. I know, Thelkros didn't turn around. Their AI analysis indicates a 94% casualty probability in the first engagement line. They've determined that participation is not optimal. We're all going to die, Chun said flatly. That's the whole point. We die and slow them down enough for the second line to kill more of them. Then the second line dies and the third line finishes the job. That's not strategy. That's mass suicide. It's both. Chun stepped closer. And it's the only way this works. You know that. Your projections showed it. My projections showed a 43% survival probability for the combined fleet. If ships start refusing to participate, then we all die faster. Chin's voice was hard. But here's the thing, Thelkros. Humans are going to fight anyway. We're going to throw ourselves at those hive moons with or without your support. We're going to die in droves because that's what we do when someone threatens our kids. She pulled out May's photograph. This is what's at stake for us. Not optimal outcomes. Not strategic superiority. Her. And 3 million people like her on New Shanghai. And billions more across human space. Thelkros finally turned. Emotional reasoning is the only thing that's going to win this. Chun stepped right up to him. Your perfect calculations say we're all dead. Fine. But human history is full of moments where the math said we couldn't win, and we did it anyway. Valley Forge. Stalingrad. Luna Base during the oxygen crisis. We're very good at looking at extinction and saying not today. That's not logical. No, it's faith. It's stubbornness. It's the irrational belief that we matter. That our children deserve a future. She met his inhuman eyes. Your species optimized the emotion out of yourselves. Made yourselves perfect. And you've been losing to the Valkyrie for months because perfection is predictable. She smiled sharp and cold. We're not perfect. We're messy and emotional, and we make decisions based on things that don't compute. And that's why you need us. Felcrows was silent for a long moment. Those 3 ships, he said finally. Their crews have families. Not in the way you understand family. We don't reproduce emotionally. But they have connections. People who will notice their absence. And they're willing to sacrifice those connections for optimal outcomes. That's what we were taught. Then, teach them something new. Chen held up the photograph. Teach them that sometimes optimal outcomes require suboptimal sacrifice. That logic only gets you so far when you're fighting something that wants to erase you from existence. Felcrows reached out, took the photograph, studied it. Your offspring, he said quietly. She's very small. She's 7. And you're willing to die to protect her. In a heartbeat. Without question. Even though it's not logical. Even though optimal outcome says I should preserve myself and have more offspring later. Chen's voice cracked. Because she's not a number in a population model. She's May. She's mine. And I will burn the whole galaxy down before I let anything hurt her. Felcrows handed back the photograph. Then, he touched the communication panel. This is Admiral Felcrows to all Corinthian vessels. The 3 ships expressing tactical concerns about first-line deployment. I understand your hesitation. The mathematics are not in our favor. He paused. But I've spent the past week observing a species that defies mathematics as a matter of cultural identity. They fight with obsolete weapons. They accept casualty rates that would terminate our entire command structure. They throw themselves at certain death because they've decided that protecting strangers is more important than self-preservation. He looked at Chun. They're teaching us that optimal outcomes are not the same as right outcomes. That sometimes survival requires sacrifice. That logic without courage is just slow extinction. His voice hardened. All ships will maintain formation. All crews will engage as ordered. If we die fighting beside allies who showed us what it means to believe in something greater than calculations. The comm went silent. Then, one of the refusing ships responded. Acknowledged, Admiral. We will hold the line. The second. Confirmed. First engagement line, maintaining position. The third. Understood. We fight together. Felcrows looked at Chun. Your species is going to get us all killed, Ambassador. Probably, Chun agreed. But at least it'll be memorable. She left him there, standing in his meditation chamber, holding a concept that didn't fit into 6,000 years of Corinthian philosophy, that sometimes dying for others was the most logical choice of all. Day 6. The Valkyrie swarm was 12 hours out. Captain Sarah Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the Guangzhou, watching the sensor displays light up with hostile contacts. 16 massive signatures that could only be hive moons. For 1,000 smaller contacts that were spawned ships. And behind them, the swarm. Hundreds of millions of soldier forms, packed into organic carriers, ready to flood across New Shanghai and convert everything into more Valkyrie. All ships report ready, her XO said. 7 defensive lines established. Ammunition loaded. Corinthian energy grids charged. Sarah pulled up the command roster. 6,300 ships. 240,000 crew. Most of them human. Most of them about to die. Fleet-wide channel, she ordered. The comm officer nodded. You're live, Captain. Sarah took a breath. To every ship in this fleet, human and Corinthian. We're about to fight the largest battle in recorded history. The enemy outnumbers us. Outmasses us. Has better regeneration and adaptation capabilities. She looked at the sensor display. At the red tide approaching. The math says we should lose. Probability says we're all dead. Logic says we should retreat and preserve resources for future engagements. She smiled. But we're not retreating. We're not running the numbers one more time, hoping they'll change. We're standing here at the edge of extinction, and we're saying come and take it. Her voice rang across the fleet. The Valkyrie think they can consume us. Convert us into more of themselves. Erase everything we are and everything we believe in. They think we're just biological matter waiting to be processed. Her hands gripped the command console. They're wrong. We're not just matter. We're not just calculations. We're people. We're families. We're the idea that individual lives matter, that sacrifice means something, that standing together against impossible odds is worth more than survival at any cost. She looked across her bridge crew, saw them standing straighter. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to hit them with everything we have. We're going to make them bleed for every meter. We're going to fight so hard that the survivors spend the next 1,000 years telling stories about the species that refuse to die quietly. Across the fleet, human and Corinthian ships alike, crews were listening. We're going to show them what happens when you threaten something humans have decided to protect. What it means when an entire species looks at extinction and says, fuck you, we're not done yet. Sarah's voice was steel and fire. First line, you know your jobs. Hold until you can't hold anymore. Then fall back and let second line take over. Every second you buy is a second the defensive grid charges. Every ship you destroy is one that won't reach the planet. She pulled up the image Chun had shown her. May, 7 years old, holding a stuffed rabbit. This is what we're fighting for. Not territory, not strategic advantage. Her, and every other child who deserves to grow up without fear of being consumed by a force that doesn't even recognize individual existence. Sarah's voice softened. Some of you are going to die today. Probably most of you. And I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry we're asking you to pay that price. But I need you to know what you're about to do matters. You matter. Every single one of you. She straightened. All ships. Take your positions. Prepare to engage. Across 6,000 ships, crews moved to battle stations. The Valkyrie swarm came on like a living storm, and humanity prepared to teach them that some prey fights back.